Women at Money. To help women start, stay, and succeed at work and in business, this is Women at Money with your host, Nkhonde Fumbeshi.
Hello and welcome to Women at Money on Money FM Business Radio 93.7 FM. It's always good to be back on air, and today we have a very exciting guest. But before we could just go into the program, just to let you in onto what the program is all about. So this program is aimed to uplift women, lead in businesses, inspire the next generation to get involved in the economic development of the country as well. So you can get us on 0967 865 040. You can also get us on our various social media platforms, that is Facebook, Twitter, and also you can send us a WhatsApp. So our quote today is coming from Sheryl Sandberg, and it is saying, "We need women at all levels, including the top, to change the dynamic, shape the conversation, to make sure women's voices are heard and heeded, not overlooked and ignored." I will back shortly to introduce the topic and the guest for today.
For business on the go, visit www.moneyfmzambia.com to watch, stream, and download various programs from anywhere in the world.
Okay, so the topic under discussion today is economic development through women empowerment. And I'm your host, Nkhonde Fumbeshi. So women's economic empowerment includes women's ability to participate equally in existing markets, their access to and control over productive resources, access to decent work, control over their own time, lives, and bodies, and increased voices. Agency and meaningful participation in economic development making at all levels, from the household to international institutions. Today, I am privileged to be joined by Nambula Kachumi, who is the Executive Director of Women's Entrepreneurship Access Center. She is also a private development professional with over 14 years experience in entrepreneurship ecosystem and inclusive development. She is also passionate and eager to see African women entrepreneurs succeed and create wealth in the mainstream economies. Welcome to the program, Nambula.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
All right. It's good to have you today. And just before we get into the program, first things first, tell us about your childhood. How was it growing up as Nambula?
Well, okay, good question. Yeah, so I grew up on the Copper Belt, Kitwe to be specific. I come from a family of 5. I happen to be the youngest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, so with my siblings, I think growing up on the Copper Belt was quite interesting, especially that, Kitwe being a mining town, obviously I was part of experiencing firsthand the economic involvement, of the country, through a town such as Kitwe. But also, most importantly, I had my education there. I was educated within the Catholic system, St. John's Convent, and later on went to Fatima Girls Secondary School.
Okay.
So that's where I had my childhood, and later on, obviously, I've had various locations, including Lusaka.
Okay. And just a brief education background.
Okay. So, like I mentioned, I studied at the University of Zambia as the first degree. Did my public administration. Later on, I went to ZICAS, Zambia Center for Accountancy Studies, to pursue my higher diploma in project management, and then did my MBA with the University of Nicosia.
Okay, fantastic. We'll take just a short break, and we'll be back to get into the topic of discussion for today.
Women at Money. To help women start, stay, and succeed at work and in business, this is Women Art Money with your host, Nkhonde Fumbeshi.
Welcome back to Women at Money on Money FM Business Radio 93.7 FM. You can get us on 0967-865-040 for those voice notes and also just your messages via WhatsApp. You can also stream us live on Money FM, www.moneyfmzambia.com. So you can also catch this interview on our podcast once we are done. So Nambula, let's get into the show. The first question, that, I'm sure a lot of people hear of this empowerment. What really is empowerment from your perspective?
Right. Okay, good question. I think when I think about empowerment, there are two things that come to mind, and these are things that you've also mentioned in your introduction.
Yeah.
So I think about ability and opportunities. Because I think empowerment is the state of being. Getting to a point where an environment is enabled, enough to support equal participation and access to resources. And that ability comes through a number of things, which include, access to knowledge, information, education, skills, tools, and the ability to use those tools in order to transform or to develop key aspects of our society. And secondly, empowerment also alludes to opportunity, because you can have the skills, you can have the tools, but if you do not have the opportunity to exercise and to access those resources, then it means that it's a disempowerment in itself.
Yeah.
So I think empowerment is something that is a discussion or a conversation that has been going on for a very, very long time. And when we talk about empowerment, we're looking at an inclusive approach to ensuring that various sectors of the economy, society, cutting across social, cultural, economic, and health issues are taken into consideration, and ensuring that everybody is brought on board to get them into the mainstream of development.
I like two things that you've brought out. You brought out opportunity and also participation. So how is the Zambian space, especially in business, allowing equal participation for women?
Right. So it's interesting when you specifically talk about the Zambian context. I think there have been various initiatives across the globe that alludes to women's participation within different markets, economic sectors and subsectors. But I think also the issue is whether we do have some primary indicators that allow us to measure impact and see how much has been done, and also the level at which women, for example, are at in terms of accessing those resources. So, definitely there are some spheres of the economy where we are seeing positive traction, women and girls advancing in different sectors and in different subsectors. But I think there's still a lot that needs to be done, especially to make gender equality a reality. And so when we talk about specific business sectors, we still see women and girls, for example, participating in the side stream and are not being given the full opportunity, to go into higher level participation and access into these business opportunities. So, like, for example, the Women's Entrepreneurship Access Center, one of our key areas of focus is to address gender barriers to entrepreneurship. And we've been trying to study these different markets, locally, looking at statistics, data around women's access to income, women's access to employment opportunities, women's access to education, and overall entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship development. And we have seen certain trends that still indicate or point to the fact that the pace is still very slow.
Okay. So you've indicated that in the business sector, the pace is still slow. We're still picking up in terms of opportunities for women and also participation for women. And when you look at the formal sector, where there are salaries and everything else, not just for Zambia and not just for Africa, but just across the globe, you see that those gender gap in terms of work all over the country. Like when it comes to income, there's also, women are getting less than men. When it comes to opportunities, women are also getting less than men. So how can this, the very fact of empowering women, close the gender gap that is there?
Yeah, right. So I think, Nkhonde, one of the things that we need to realize is the negative impact of gender inequality in our economy. So, through some of the reports surfaced by UNDP, we've learned that in sub-Saharan Africa, every year there's about $95 billion dollars that is lost due to gender inequality, and that's about 6% of the continent's GDP. And so for me, I think those are statistics that are very, very compelling, and we are asking ourselves why. But you will also notice that in as much as we have had advancement of women in education, for example, where we've had high enrollment over the last 5 years at different levels of education, we're also beginning to question the quality of education, first of all, but also the slow transition from education to the labor force. And for women, that appears, to be more evident because they are slowly transitioning into the workplace. And that is because, most of the times women have not had the opportunity to position themselves for the formal labor force. You will notice that whether it's business or education, women are participating in less profitable, sectors, informal sectors, and also there's very little data, which alludes to some of the significant strides, that have been achieved. So I think there's a number of things, specifically in the business world, where we are not seeing the labor market open up more. And also what is missing is participation of women in more profitable sectors and formalized sectors. You will notice that when it comes to, venture-backed businesses for women, there's less than 2% currently on the continent. There's a lot of opportunity for investment coming to sub-Saharan Africa, but there's very little traction from the demand side. And this is mainly because of low capacity and also gender considerations that enable women, to have more visibility and also to position themselves better in terms of accessing investment opportunities. Yeah, so I think there's a lot that needs to be taken into consideration when you look at, for example, various supply chains across the continent. Currently, with the COVID, situation, we've seen women have been thrown back,
into caregivers.
Yes, exactly. And so we are looking at where do the opportunities lie, for women, which sectors. When you look at, sectors such as transport and logistics, technology, how many technology-enabled businesses are moving into the mainstream, how many of women-owned startups are having access to credit and capital. Yeah, so it's a whole lot of outlook that needs to be analyzed. But I think I am very big on issues of data. I think there's a need for more to be done to really understand how women have been impacted and why this slow movement in a number of key economic sectors.
I like the fact that you brought out the aspect of having more women into the technological world. From, I think, an assessment or research that was done by Zicta, you find that very few women, there is low usage in terms of technology and even just cell phones and the use of internet compared to men. What would be the relevance of a woman to just, familiarize herself with the latest technologies that are happening around?
Right. So first of all, I think we need to acknowledge that technology has the power, to address inequality in a number of sectors. Technology has the power to transform, the way people access resources, the way people evolve socially, economically, the way they interact. And so we are looking into technology not as a magic bullet, but as a solution to so many challenges that exist, currently. I'll give you an example of what is happening in the, impact sector or impact investing sector. So you find that, Africa, like many other continents, is grappling with a lot of challenges, economic, social, and so on. And so with these challenges has come innovation. And what we're looking to see also is more innovative, or rather inclusive, innovation ecosystems. I think innovation and technology right now remains in very elitist, societies, because there's a slow movement in terms of technology transformation, especially in the sectors that are mainly, to do with low-income communities, bottom of the pyramid. What sort of innovation is happening there? How are they owning, innovation? So I think technology has, the power to change a lot of things. But the question is, remains the issue of the digital divide, that exists in many sectors. When you look at currently the setup of our education sector, we find that there are fewer girls, that are going into STEM-related fields, fewer that are going into business that supports, whether it's small-scale commercialization in those sectors. When you look at what's happening currently in bioscience and biotechnology, which is a key issue, because it's one of the areas or sectors that has the potential to solve the problems that we're currently grappling with. Very few businesses, for example, scientists, that are entrepreneurs, are being supported enough to take their ideas from the lab into the market. So that gap that exists between innovation and business commercialization is what hinders, advancement of technology, and technology, to be a conduit to development. So we need to look at a multi-sectoral, dimension that enables us to analyze what is happening in different sectors, and how key populations like women and girls, who are a large constituency in any economy, are faring in terms of access to, technological transformation.
All right. Thank you so much, Nambula, for that elaborate, answer to my question. If you're just joining us, we have Nambula Kachumi in studio, and we're looking at economic development through women empowerment on Women at Money 93.7 FM, Money FM. Let us go and get a short break. We gotta wait from our sponsors.
Women at Money. To help women start, stay, and succeed at work and in business, this is Women at Money with your host, Nkhonde Fumbeshi. Women at Money. To help women start, stay, and succeed at work and in business, this is Women at Money with your host, Nkhonde Fumbeshi.
Welcome back to Women at Money on Money FM Business Radio 93.7 FM. Today I'm very excited because we have an interesting topic. We're looking at economic development through women empowerment. And I have in studio Nambula. Nambula, this is an exciting year for Zambia, given the fact that we're going into election year. It is a year where there's so many uncertainties and, so many people wanted to contest for elections or left out and stuff like that. So, and we have seen quite a number of changes. We've seen women adoptions as women being adopted as running mate. So what would be your message to female candidates, especially those who are contesting in various positions, to put across in the bid to assume public office? What would be the message to you and to us who may buy? Yeah.
Right, that's a good question. Yeah, it is an exciting year, and obviously we have a lot of expectations as Zambians. We have expectations as women, in terms of how we will be represented through this period of transition. But I think my message to women leaders is that leadership being very key to any societal transformation. We need to ensure that as women we are positioning ourselves better for these positions of power. And this is, I think, there's a lot of effort that has gone into supporting women to take more active roles in the political sphere. So representation is very, very key. We want to see a situation where there's an increase in numbers at different levels of leadership, political leadership, economic, business leadership, and so on and so forth. But I think also preparation is key, because we cannot go into a situation like this without being prepared as women, and preparation starts very early. And this is why I insist that we need to invest more in grooming, in mentoring, young women to have the confidence to take up political leadership and political power. And this is why sometimes we are thrown into a situation where society thinks that we are not ready, but I think more opportunities and investment into young women, taking up more leadership positions is very, very key. And this has to start early. I think also when it comes to, representation, we are looking at a number of things that we are looking towards, for hope, as women. As you know, Zambia has been signatory to a number of international instruments that allude to gender equality and gender empowerment. Some of these being the SADC, gender protocol that we are all aware of. We also have the AU Charter on Human and People's Rights, on the rights of women's rights in Africa. We have the UN Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination of Women. And, this year actually, coincidentally, marks 25 years since the Beijing Platform for Action, where gender equality was identified as a cross-cutting issue across the globe. And Zambia going towards elections this year in 2021, I think is a good reminder of some of the efforts and strides that we are making in various spheres. So whether it's from the media front, from the business front, health and social, what is it that we women are doing to ensure that we are making this a reality? So every girl, young child who was 1 year old 25 years ago is 25 years now.
Exactly, yeah.
So what message are we putting across in order to bring hope and to bring aspiration? And so we are excited by this year's elections, and we're hoping that women can position themselves better as they look towards the elections. Anyway, so Nambula, just to wrap up, just under 2 minutes, there are so many women out there looking for opportunities, looking for funds. I know in our conversation you mentioned that there's lack of access of funds for women. What opportunities are there out there that women can easily access funds, easily access mentorship, especially when it comes to business, so that they are able to run their businesses and able to strive in whatever business that they pick up? Right. So I think this brings us back to our earlier conversation on empowerment. The various forms of empowerment and what exactly we allude to when we talk about empowerment. So I talked about ability and opportunity. And what we're seeing right now, especially in the business world, is that things are beginning to look up, in terms of supporting, for example, women entrepreneurs to move from the margins of the economy into the mainstream. There are so many opportunities. But I think when we talk about access to capital and unlocking credit, for women to enable them to build their capacity, I think one of the things that we need to focus more on is expanding, platforms, growing and supporting women to have better access to business professional networks and communities that support their business growth. Because what we are seeing more evidently is that everybody out there is looking for money, looking for capital, which is key to jump-starting or accelerating any business. But I think something catalytic needs to happen in terms of building capacities of women entrepreneurs, startups, and SMEs to enable them position themselves better for any form of funding opportunity. And at WEAC, this is what we do, because we've seen the gaps between women starting a business and accessing funding to grow their business. So we focus more on providing opportunities for mentorship, business coaching, and also providing a larger platform for them to be part of an entrepreneurial community that supports their business growth long term. And I'm happy that now things are beginning to look up, in terms of non-traditional access to capital, various forms of funding, impact investment coming to Zambia, venture capital. We are trying to test the waters, although these are very infant sectors. But at WEAC, we're happy to support advancement in those different forms of accessibility.
Okay, great job that you're doing there. Okay, so Nambula, thank you so much for having me through to Money FM, and thank you so much for accepting the invitation to come through. So today we had Nambula Kachumi, who is a executive director of Women Entrepreneurship Access Center, and we were looking at economic empowerment as a key to economic development. So Nambula, thank you so much for having come through.
Pleasure.
Yeah, we had limited time, but I'm so sure that I will call you again so that we have a much wider discussion.
I'll be glad to come.
Yeah, thank you so much. So this has been Women at Money on Money FM Business Radio 93.7 FM. Thank you so much for joining us. Unfortunately, today we could not hear your voice notes due to limited time that we had, but promise, next week we will hear your voice notes. So until next time, it's bye-bye for now.
Women at Money. To help women start, stay, and succeed at work and in business. This is Women at Money with your host, Nkhonde Fumbeshi.